about a Canadian former Navy guy who got kicked out of a hotel. And we actually contacted him and asked permission to read the story on the air for you tonight. And here is a dramatic interpretation by Mr. Cameron Harms.
28 March 2018. Dear Empress Hotel, this may seem like an unusual request, but I write to you today seeking a pardon. 17 years ago, a string of unfortunate events led to my being banned from your hotel. I would like to explain the incident. In 2001, I had recently joined my current employer, and I was also in the Canadian Naval Reserves. My company was hosting a customer conference at the Empress, and it was my first event with the company. I told some of my Navy buddies that I was coming out west, and I was asked to bring along some of Brothers Pepperoni from Halifax. It's a local delicacy. Since this was the Canadian Navy we were talking about, I brought along enough for a ship. In a hurry, I had completely filled a suitcase with pepperoni for my friends. Some of it was wrapped in plastic, some of it in paper. I took whatever Brothers would sell me. That was the bag that the airline misplaced. It reappeared the next day. I knew the pepperoni would still be good. It had only been at room temperature for a short time. It would, however, be quite some time until I could turn the pepperoni over to my friends. Just to be safe, I decided I should keep it cool. My room was a nice, big, front-facing room on the 4th floor. It was well appointed, but it did not have a refrigerator. It was April, the air was chilly. A great way to keep all this food cool would be to just put it next to an open window. So I opened one of the sashes, and I took all the packages of pepperoni and spread it out on the table and on the windowsill, and then I went for a walk for 4 or 5 hours. When I had covered enough ground, I returned to the hotel. I remember walking down the long hall and opening the door to my room to find an entire flock of seagulls in my room. I didn't have time to count. There must have been at least 40 of them, and they had been in my room eating pepperoni for a long time. In case you were wondering, Brothers TNT Pepperoni does nasty things to a seagull's digestive system. As you can imagine, the room was covered in seagull crap. What I hadn't realized until then was that seagulls also drool, especially when they've been eating pepperoni. I'm sure you have an image in your mind, all right? Just remember, I had just opened the door and startled all of these birds. They instantly started flying around the room and crashing into things as they all crazily tried to escape through the same small opening by which they had entered. Less composed seagulls were trying to leave through the other closed windows. The result was a tornado of seagull excrement and feathers and bits of pepperoni and rather large birds all whipping around the room. They were crashing into things. The lamps were falling over. The curtains were trashed. The coffee table was just disgusting. I waded through the birds and opened the remaining windows. Most of the gulls left immediately. One of them tried to re-enter to get another piece of pepperoni for himself. In my agitated state, I took off one of my shoes and threw it at him. Both the gull and the shoe went out the window. By this time, I had one gull left in the room. But it was a big one, and it did not want to leave. As I chased it, it flew around the room with a piece of pepperoni in its gob. In a moment of clarity, I grabbed a bath towel and jumped it. It immediately started freaking out, so I wrapped it in the towel and threw it out the window. I'd forgotten that seagulls cannot fly when they are wrapped in a bath towel. This is all happening very quickly, and it's mid-afternoon. The Empress hosts a very popular and very famous high tea. I suspect that is where the large group of tourists was heading, as they were struck first by my shoe, and second by a bound-up seagull. The seagull was fine, by the way. Let's get back to my little housekeeping issue. The room was bad. There was a lot of damage. I was new to my company. I was trying to make a good impression at this event, so I decided to just carry on for now, and I would fix all of this later. It was then that I realized that I had only minutes before a very important dinner event, and that I only had one shoe. I made my way to one of the side doors and found the towel and the shoe in a patch of dirt near the walking path. The shoe was disgusting. I took it back to my room. Now, by this point, I had closed the windows, and the air in the room was beginning to be rather ripe with the smell of partially digested pepperoni and fish. I rinsed the shoe in the sink. It was actually cleaning up quite nicely. But then I had one wet, dark-colored shoe and one light, dry-colored shoe. In retrospect, I should probably have wet the dry shoe, but instead I decided to dry the wet shoe using the little hair dryer. I had it jammed in there and cranked up on high, and it was actually drying fairly well. And then the phone rang. I went to the other room to get it, and the power goes out. Apparently, the hair dryer had vibrated free from the shoe and fallen into the sink that was full of water, and the ground wasn't 100% functional. I don't know how much of the hotel's power I knocked out, but it was at this point I decided I needed help. I called the front desk and asked them to send up someone to help me to clean a mess. I still remember the look on the woman's face when she opened the door. I had no idea what to tell her, so I looked at her and said, "I'm sorry." And then I went to dinner. When I returned, my things had been moved to a much smaller room, and I thought that was the end of it. That is, until I was informed that my company had received a letter saying that I had been banned from the Empress, a ban that I have respected for almost 18 years. I have matured, and I admit responsibility for my actions. I come to you today, hat in hand, to apologize for the damage that I indirectly came to cause. I ask you to reconsider my lifetime ban from the property. I hope that you will see fit to either grant me a pardon or consider my 18 years away from the property as time served. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Nick Burchill. Update, 31 March. After reviewing my application for a pardon with the Empress staff, Ryan, the manager, has notified me verbally that I will once again be welcome as a guest. I'll bet that it was that pound of Brothers Pepperoni I sent him as a peace offering that really did the trick. Thank you.
Gentlemen arms, ladies and gentlemen. How about that?